We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and friends. If you want to support this college football rebel outpost with a donation, hit the $ where you make a comment, and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls later in the show. We're going to do an early Saturday live Peek Around the Corner show, college football, because I know you all want to get to your basketball. But again, there are things that I want to talk about in college football. And if I get one or two people in the chat room, we're going to talk. And I'm so humbled that more than one or two people showed up on this Saturday, early Saturday afternoon. So I do very much appreciate it. We're going to go through a roll call. And I'm going to get a lot of people upset once again, because that is what I do. I don't only sing off key. I don't only bring a incredibly bad winning percentage against the spread when we do our pick'em games. I don't only bring the most obnoxious watch parties all throughout college football YouTube. I do way more than that. I do way more than that. I am the most unpopular college football YouTube channel in the country because I go after everybody. If I believe it's true, if I believe there is a just cause, I will. I fight the power that be. I fight the power that be. And today I am, once again, I believe we have enough evidence. Let me know if I'm wrong. The Big Ten, the SEC, Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey have blundered. They have blundered the House NCAA settlement. Now, just hold on here. Hold on. I know a lot of Big Ten people, SEO, Greg, I know that the House NCAA settlement was complicated. I get it. I'm just giving you my opinion, guys. Now, I'm giving you an opinion that is shared by some. I'm just giving you, it was complicated. They had to do something. Now, a lot of people are focusing on the fact, Greg, the House and NCAA settlement, that is going to be ripped to shred by other courts. The people are going to sue. They're already suing, whatever. I understand all that. But I'm trying to deal with the reality of today. On April 7th, it's most likely Judge Wilkins is going to confirm it. It's going to get done, okay? So I'm trying to deal with what is in front of us. And also, we got to remember that the NCAA lost. The institutions lost. The conferences lost. The institutions, the NCAA, they lost this case. So now it was a settlement. And to get the back pay, to settle, the back pay to the student athletes because they did not enjoy the NIL or the freedom of gaining compensation. House the swimmer. They had to get a settlement done, and everybody in the room, the SEC, the Big Ten, Big 12, everybody in the room wanted that back pay to settle at around $2.8 billion for 10 years. That's a lot of money, baby. That is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But if they did not settle at $2.8 billion, there was a good chance later on it would be taken further into the, all reports says that back pay could have ballooned up to 10, 15, 20 billion dollars. So today I'm gonna point out what I believe is a major blunder by Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey, and somewhat by Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips. But I also want to put it in the context of, and I'm going to give them all some grace on this, a settlement had to get done. That's the thing. A settlement had to get done. Even if you come with the argument, which I'm going to talk about today, even if you come with the argument that, well, this is going to get ripped on, this is going to get shredded later in the courts. Sure, yes. But They had to get it. They already lost a settlement negotiation with the lawyers of House, $2.8 billion versus $15 billion in back pay. Something had to get done. So I want to give everybody their grace on that. That was the reality. But even then, I believe, I believe we're going to hear more about this. It's going to be a post-conversation after April 7th. In fact, people are talking about it now, but I think in more of a open, somebody's going to write a major article on this. Petitti and Sankey blundered. In fact, people are talking about it now in relation to the rev share, in relation to other D1 athletic departments. When it comes to basketball, they're going to be able to spend more in rev share for the basketball than the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC and the Big 12 institutions. But there is even more of it. I mean, there is even a bigger mistake, and we're going to talk about it. And I talked about it at the time of this settlement. I did not quite understand why Petitti and Sankey decided to die on the hill that they died on. I think they should have died on a different hill. We'll talk about it. Let me know how wrong I got it once again. But before we get into that, we're going to be talking some football. Football. And like I say, during the offseason here at College Football Peek Around the Corner, we still talk football. We're going to be doing a top 10. This is coming from Pro Football Focus. Their top 10 running backs going into the 25 season. And a couple weeks ago, I said we were going to do that. We're going to go to other units as well. We have done 2 top 15, top 10 quarterback listings of Pro Football Focus and ESPN. Today, we're going to be doing the running backs. And I know I can come up with running backs that were not on this list. I can come up with a couple running backs in the SEC that were not on the top 10 list. So I know there's going to be some controversy. But this is from Pro Football Focus Analytics, top 10 running backs going into the 25 season. I also want to apologize for this cold that I got. I finally got over my last cold. My wife came home from Mexico with a very bad cold. Very bad. She's been it's bad. It's brutal. You know, the travel. She was on so many different airplanes because they traveled from Mexico City to Veracruz, and Mexico City to Veracruz. Anyways, she gave me the cold. So I'm struggling today. I've been struggling the last couple of days. Today, I'm not going to be able to cover it up. I'm in coughing. My throat is really bad. The good news is there's not going to be any singing from the fat guy from Minnesota. The bad news is I'm going to be coughing, and it's going to be terrible. But before we get into, and then we're going to be talking about recent words from Coach Franklin. Penn State. Some tough love. Some tough love challenging his quarterback, Drew Allar, who is probably, if you think about it, probably the biggest wild card of the entire 2025 season. This Penn State football team should win the Big Ten. They have the advantages over a resetting Buckeyes. They have the advantage over somewhat of a resetting Oregon Ducks. And they have a shot for the national championship. And they've got a lot of returning players, baby. And they've got Andy Koltonicki. And they've got Jim Knowles, the defensive coordinator from the Buckeyes. They are all set to do everything. Drew Allar, 2 full years starting quarterback. He's got the measurables. He's got the stats. He's got the performances, but not in the big games. Does he have the intangibles? Recently, Franklin put out some interesting words about his quarterback. Now, we've seen Franklin have to coach up his quarterback. We saw it during the Minnesota Golden Gopher game last year. Penn State was down. Drew Allar got all upset. Franklin went to the bench. The game was going on. Franklin got down on one knee in front of Drew Allar and coached him up. It was a great job by Franklin. Great job. Drew Allar came back and played better. Penn State won 26-25. You can give that win to Coach Franklin. But Drew Allar ain't going to be able to afford those moments, those meltdown moments in this year. I've got Penn State winning the Big Ten. I've got them knocking on the door, winning the national championship. I've got Texas so far in the way too early predictions. Drew Allar's the big wild card in my estimation. And if he can reach that final plateau of excellence, Penn State has got a brilliant shot at winning it all. So I think Franklin's words that he just said about his quarterback is mighty interesting, psychological. Is he coaching them up? Is he giving him tough love? Is he putting out a warning? I don't know. I want you to listen to what Franklin said. I want your comments and I want your phone calls after we get through the monologue. But we got to do a roll call first. Roll call first. Everybody appreciate it. The Walking Geek is in the house. Charlie Atwood, Caleb Ramirez, Mr. Buckeye, Mr. Cyclone, Matt Neeson, Daniel Gygax, The Big Gun Shop, Dave B. Please keep sourcing top 15s until Retzlaff is in the top 15. Do you want Retzlaff to be named in the top 10, top 15 quarterbacks? You know, Dave B., I'm sure you remember, and other BYU Cougar fans and the PATC family, I praised Retzlaff before the season last year. I loved his story. I knew he went to junior college. And he is the underdog. He is the ultimate underdog. Do you want him not to be an underdog anymore? I think you would want him to feel disrespected. I think the BYU Cougar fans are comfortable that the quarterback is being disrespected. I think the BYU Cougars enjoy. I think Retzlaff enjoys. I'm playing psychiatrist here. I believe you all enjoy that Sawyer Robertson is getting more respect going into 2025 than Retzlaff. But I might be wrong. AMAC is in the house. Joaquin Morales is here. Tumasta, busy week. Absolutely busy week. Bill G is in the house. Jeff Olson, Evo Badgers, running back University. Oh, Jeff. MGC Sooner is in the house. Jay Chapman, Ryan Willie on Wisconsin. We got two Evil Badgers within 4 comments of each other. Holy smokes. Jay Chapman's in the house. Vox Quindaro, Mr. Rock Chalk, Jayhawk. How do Phlegarians? How's everybody doing? Edward, the Auburn Tiger. Let's go. RT's in the house. Kenneth the Maynard. Ryan Brooks. There ain't going to be no LSU Tiger running back in the top 10. And if there's any weakness to this LSU team going into next year. Who is going to be the guy who carries the rock? Last year they had a guy, an emerging, once again, running back. I think he was a sophomore. He got injured the year before, got injured again. I can't remember his name right now. Let me know, Ryan Brooks. The running attack was not physical enough from LSU last year, much like Ole Miss. It might be the one thing that I'm looking for LSU Tigers, a physical running back. Houston is going to go all the way in the basketball tournament. What I don't get is so many are saying Virginia's a prize for the P2, but Virginia is doing basically nothing to be competitive, and even in men's basketball. Thank you, John Famlor. Appreciate you coming on in. We've talked a lot about Virginia. I don't want to get in that rabbit hole today. We're going to be talking about them once again, but they are the top. North Carolina is the top target for the SEC and the Big Ten. If you put Notre Dame in its own box, and Virginia is going to be the partner with North Carolina. This is what we believe here at Peek Around the Corner. It has not a whole lot to do with a competitive football team. Richard L. is in the house. Mr. Colorado Buffalo. Bo Weevil is here. G. Brew is here. Mr. Monkey says, we in the lowly Big 12 need to upgrade our football to the level of Virginia's. Oh, God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. We in the lowly Big 12 need to upgrade our football to the level of Virginia so we can be in the high and mighty P2. Shot fired. Shot landed. But again, I do not have the voice to talk about. We talked about Virginia in the live show, a couple live shows ago. Go back and watch it. But it has to do with the student apocalypse. It has to do with the demographics. And it has to do with the relationship with North Carolina. And it happens to do with the SEC presidents want more student diversity. It happens to do with Virginia's international student population and all that stuff. And it's not just me saying it, of course, but I'm willing to die on the hill. I am being as transparent and as clear as possible. North Carolina is the number one target for the SEC. And Virginia is going to be the partner in that. And maybe there's going to have to be a blend. Maybe the SEC is going to have to bring in a Florida State and Clemson to make it work economically for their media partners. We shall see. But Virginia is in that spot. And no, it doesn't have to do with their football brand. Most definitely it does not. Same thing with Maryland and Rutgers. Different story, different year, different reasons, but they were brought into the Big Ten not because of their football brands. RT is in the house. Bob Swanger is here. Mick Stevens. Flugar has potential. Florida winning bracket. Let's not talk about how Flugar might win something. Let's not talk about how Flugar might win a 175 bracket field in the NCAA dance. Let's not talk about it. This is Loserville City, and I am the mayor. We don't want to jinx anything. But yes, we all got to root on the Florida Gators today. Morris Simmons is in the house. Mr. Seminole. Ryan Willie, holy smokes. Wisconsin's men's hockey NCAA Title 6. Wisconsin's women hockey Titles 8. Wisconsin has been better in hockey than Minnesota. I need to have something to be proud of because I'm not proud of the football program. Yeah, congratulations, Ryan Willie. Wisconsin has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you for the super chat. Very appreciate it. Now look, you got nothing to lose with your football team this year. For the first time in a long time, I would say 22 years, 23 years, Wisconsin has no expectations. Tough schedule. Everyone knows they're down. Billy Edwards, their quarterback. They're going to need some magic. They're going to need some magic just to get to a bowl game. You've got nothing to lose, everything to gain, Ryan Willie. If the Badgers are getting crushed, you know that Luke Fickell is probably going to be axed. Pun intended. Pun intended. And then you bring in a new coach, new energy, excitement, and all that stuff. You've got nothing to lose this year. No pressure. Ryan Willie can be free of pressure. Thank you for the super chat, Ryan. I do appreciate it so very much. Nathan Campbell's in the house. Hi, Nathan. No, Raiola is in great shape. Ryan Willie. Raiola is in really good shape. Better shape than last year. I wish that was true, but that's not true. From every report I've heard, Raiola has been looking fantastic, which is too bad. Muggy Wow is in the house. Mr. Monkey says, I understand it. I get it. It was a good one, and it's correct. Fighting Cavalier football rules. Ron is in the house. Good comment. 7 Empis. Stanford, Cal, SMU jumped. Titanic, both sunk like the ACC Gore. SMU had a really good year last year. Fantastic year last year. Made it to the playoffs. Or you might mean something else. I'm not sure. AMAC, Greg, please pick Florida. Let's forget that Jeff Olson, the evil Badger, even came into the chat room. Let's pretend he did not even. Media partners are paying for ratings. None of the ancillary stuff matters to them. You are true. And that's why I keep bringing up that the Virginia, North Carolina might need Clemson and Florida State to grease the skids. That might be the 4-team combo that the SEC needs to satisfy everybody. But I also want to just, and I believe that, and I've said this over and over again, Clemson and Florida State are going to get to where they need to get to when it comes to economics of this new college era because they're just too valuable. They're going to be able to get to where they need to get to by hook or by crook. SEC, Big Ten, some other conference, whatever. But I would want to, I need to say this. I need to caution everybody on, once again, viewership. Viewership is important, obviously. Eyeballs are important, obviously. If Clemson and Florida State went to the SEC, they probably, now in some ways they would get more exposure, but in other ways they wouldn't probably dominate the time slots like they do in the ACC. But that's not where I want even to get to. I think they would elevate the Tier 1 contract. I think that they would help the SEC in a future media negotiations. I believe if Florida State and Clemson would help the SEC in potential media negotiations that would happen before they are scheduled because of all the moving parts of the SEC. Going to 9 conference games, plans, this potential scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. Excuse me. There goes my cold. Excuse me. I apologize. So yeah, all that, again, Clemson and Florida State are very valuable. But I would caution on just looking at viewership numbers. It gets more complicated. I mean, it's the demographics. It's what your national advertisers want. How much money is in that market? Is there duplication of that market? I happen to believe. Now, Cranky Tiger and others can let me know if I'm wrong. But I happen to believe there's a lot of Clemson fans out there. Fan base. There's a lot of Florida State Seminoles fan base out there in Tallahassee. I think there's a lot of you that do not have the SEC network. You do not have a subscription for it. If you have a subscription for it, you probably don't watch it. Now, I watch the SEC network because I'm crazy. The SEC network is channel 960 here. In Maple Grove, Minnesota, I have Comcast. The ACC network that I watch is on 961. The Big Ten network is 256. My mother, right now on 7/4/4 at 1 o'clock. Hold on. I'm trying to make a point here. Yeah. Now, I don't know why I should have had it on. I think I might have put it on the wrong channel for her, but either way, she's on channel 744 right now watching ACC softball. I don't know who's playing. But I went into the studio at 12:30 Central Time to finish up producing the show, and I put it on the TV for her 92-year-old Irish woman who is watching ACC softball. My point is, besides that my mother is crazy and she handed it down to me, we're both college sports sickos. I believe there's probably a lot of Clemson fans and a lot of Florida State fans, and there's a lot of you, massive numbers, that don't have the SEC network. So I don't quite buy into the SEC's already in the state of Florida, so therefore the addition of Florida State will not help the SEC in SEC network subscribers. I don't buy into the fact that if the SEC already has the South Carolina Gamecocks, University of South Carolina, therefore adding Clemson does not help the SEC network subscribers. I don't believe that. I believe there's probably a lot of fans of Clemson and Florida State who do not have an SEC subscription. I could be wrong. ACC network is Disney as well. Or if you have it, you don't watch it. SEC network is an ESPN, or maybe you do. I don't know. But the point of it is, I think Clemson and Florida State is an add value to the SEC. I think they're an add value to the Big Ten. Obviously. But there's other stuff going on. That has been my point from day one. Florida State, to get to the Big Ten, is going to need the right blend and the right dominoes to fall before them, before it gets to them. Clemson's going to need the right blend. I've been very clear on this. But Clemson and Florida State is something that ESPN would advocate for. Something that Fox would advocate for. Excuse my cold. But there are other domino pieces ahead of them. Now, a lot of people disagree, and I'm fine with that, and we're going to find out eventually. But I'm pretty sure that there are other stuff going on besides viewership numbers. My cold is really getting to me. I apologize. Who else is in the house? We got a show to get to. Clint Moses. John Dry. I'm doing too much talking. Steele Austin. Ryan Willie. I'm willing to miss another bowl if Bucky wins the Axe back. Ryan Willie, thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it so much. The Axe is staying in Minnesota. John Till, I finally figured it out. Greg, your speaking cadence is like Macho Man Randy Savage. One time for the Gophers. Ooh, yeah. Is it really? Is Randy Macho Man Randy Savage from Minnesota? He's probably the one wrestler who's not. A lot of them are. Thank you, John Till. Thank you so much for your super chat. I know I am very difficult for some people to listen to. I get it. And I can't really change it, which is too bad. James Davis is in the house. Ron is here. Jose. Laura Weiss, the Red Raider. Lego Gators. Toast. D5 Terps. No way. Jeff, the Gophers are going to have more than 5 wins before we play the Badgers at the end of the season. So, no, it ain't going to be for so, nope. No. Roman Maroney is in the house. BTN could greatly increase its viewership if they uncoupled from cable providers. You can get the Big Ten Network without having a cable provider. And the Big Ten Network is the one conference network that has its live content Nielsen rated. Because they knew they were getting some big ratings for a conference network on some of their football, some of their basketball, and their volleyball. And they decided to have it Nielsen rated, and that helps them with the ad buys, the ad rates. So that's why the network is still making a lot of money. The SEC network and the ACC network are not Nielsen rated. Nittany 89 is in the house. John Till, Georgia Tech, Stanford is rooting for those 4 to the SEC. I understand the angle on that. Thank you for the super chat, John Till. I appreciate it. G. Brew, good things about floods. You can listen at 2 times and keep up just fine. Jesse Ventura was from Minnesota. Vern Gagne was from Minnesota. Gray Gagne was from Minnesota. Larry the Axe Henning was from Minnesota. Rick Flair was from Minnesota. Kurt Henning was from Minnesota. Rick Rude was from Minnesota. Road Warriors, Nikita Koloff, Barry Darsow, who was a bunch of different, all from Minnesota. In fact, most of them was from Robbinsdale, where I grew up, where my family went to school and all that stuff. So it's all basically around here. Brock Lesnar from Minnesota. My sister, and I can't really get into this too much, but my sister Patricia Pflugar, the oldest one of us, 6 kids, graduated from the same class as Rick Rude and Kurt Hennig. So that would be Robbinsdale in 1976. The stories on Rick Rude are epic here in Minnesota. He once got in a fight after a hockey game against Edina by the buses. He was in a fight with the Edina goalie. And there's other stories that I can't talk about. But anyways. Okay, let's get to it, guys. Let's get to it. I appreciate the super chats. Appreciate Ryan, Willie, Bill G. Oh, Bill G, I didn't even get to you. Oh, my goodness. Bill G, I'm so sorry. My goodness. Bill G gifted out 5 memberships, and I did not get to the people. If you got a membership from the incredible generosity of Bill G, please say thank you to him. And you are all knighted cloak and dagger. I did not mean to do that either. Holy smokes. You all are knighted officially cloak and dagger. I'm sorry, Bill G. I apologize. Thank you once again for your incredible generosity. All the gifted memberships you have given out. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry. I did not see it. I hit the wrong sounder. I am absolutely struggling. Absolutely struggling. Okay. Let's get to the top 10 running backs for the 2025 season, Pro Football Focus. Then we're going to be talking about the tough love that Drew Allar has received from Coach Franklin. And then I'm going to talk about my strongly held opinion on the Big Ten SEC Blundered. They have blundered the House AC settlement for their respective conferences. Okay. Yaheem White, number 10, West Virginia, 2 years ago. He was absolutely spectacular. White hasn't handled as many carries as others on this list, but he's made the most of every opportunity. 35% forced missed tackle rate as a sophomore. Tied for third among the Power 4 running backs. 6.5 yards per carry at his career average. Ranks fourth among all running backs since 23. Number 10, Yaheem White for West Virginia. And you got to think that Rich Rodriguez is going to lean on Yaheem White. Now, he's not a guy so far that he hasn't been the cowbell for West Virginia. Now, C.J. Donaldson transferred to the Buckeyes. So, Bob Backlund, also from Minnesota. Sorry about that. Mad Dog Vachon. Anyways, Jaheim White, number 10 on the list. Rich Rod's going to be leaning heavily on him. Let's see if he can handle more carries and be as effective. Number 9, Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech. Haynes King, the quarterback. Jamal Haynes, the running back. Number 11, electrified last year. Haynes has been one of the nation's most productive backs over the past couple of seasons for the Yellow Jackets. 2005 rushing yards since 2023. First among returning Power 4 backs. Great running back. Out of the backfield, you can throw him the football. He'll catch it. He'll make some yards after the catch. Tough kid. Jamal Haynes King, very tough backfield. The rambling wreck of Georgia Tech, number 9, Jamal Haynes. Number 8, Desmond Reed, Pittsburgh. Now the Mountaineer fans are going to be upset that a Panther was rated ahead of a Mountaineer. They're playing each other September 13th. The backyard brawl. 9-13. Rich Rodriguez lost to Pittsburgh 13-9. Boy, that is going to be an emotional, dramatic football game. Desmond Reed, there isn't a better receiving back returning to college football than Reed. After excelling at Western Carolina for 2 seasons, he made the jump to FBS and led all the running backs with 580 receiving yards this past season. Desmond Reed electrify the Pittsburgh Panthers out of the backfield. Big-time player, rated number 8 from Pro Football Focus. Top 10 running backs for the 2025 season. Number 7, beloved Golden Gopher Darius Taylor. He's been a do-it-all back. 79.9 PFF receiving grade since 2023. Leads all Power 4 halfbacks. 1,300 yards after contact. Again, Darius Taylor. Great running back, but we need Darius Taylor, who I call the Beast. We need him to be healthy game 1. In his freshman season, he was not healthy for game 1. In his sophomore season, when we lost to North Carolina, when we missed that short field goal, Darius Taylor could not play in that game. Game 1, we need Darius Taylor to get out of the August camp healthy. No soft tissue injuries. Darius Taylor, number 7. Kaytron Allen, Penn State, the Thunder to Nick Singleton's Lightning. Allen also announced his return for the senior season, thus giving the Nittany Lions the best backfield in college football entering the 25 season. Kaytron Allen, man, he's a great running back. I thought he really got a second win late in the season last year. And Nick Singleton, the other great running back for Penn State backfield, he's going to be on this list. You're going to see his name shortly. Kaytron Allen, fantastic running back. Mr. Hughes, Oregon. I loved watching him play at Tulane with Darian Mensah, Mekhi Hughes. He posted 1,982 rushing yards after contact across his first 2 seasons of college football. Only Ashton Genty and Amarian Hampton tallied more in that span. This kid is tough. This kid is tough. A lot of Big Ten running backs on this list. Number 4, Jonah Coleman, Washington. Big Ten. Coleman has been one of the college football's most efficient runners since he arrived on the scene 3 years ago. Across his 2 seasons at Arizona and 1 with the Huskies, Coleman has posted a 95.4 career PFF rushing grade, tied for 5th among FBS running backs in that span. Jonah Coleman, Washington, number 4. Number 3, another Big Ten running back, Nicholas Singleton. Penn State, man, they are absolutely loaded. Singleton surprised many when he decided to return to Happy Valley for his senior season after he was projected a day 2 pick for the 25 NFL draft. Singleton, Allen, Drew Allar. We're going to be talking about a lot about Penn State in the offseason and when the football season starts. Number 2, and I put it in the description below the video. You're not going to have enough. This is PFF's top 10. But nobody can have a top 10 list for the 2025 running backs and not include Mr. Isaac Brown, Louisville. Brown wasn't even among the top 40 running backs recruits coming out of high school. The former 3-star just proved that immediately. I mean, as a true freshman, right out of the gate, he was a superstar for Jeff Brom. Jeff Brom, the head coach, recognized it. Put him in there at the beginning of the season. He ran for over 1,100 yards, true freshman. 7.2 yards per carry. Game-breaking speed and quickness. Isaac Brown is a superstar. Louisville Cardinals. And number 1 on the list, Jeremiah Love. And he proved it all season long. I called him the straw that stirred the Irish drink. He was injured at the end of the season in the playoffs, in the championship game, but he still played. And he played like a beast. Jeremiah Love, number 1 on the list. The Fighting Irish Elites' run game and stellar defense led them to the national championship game this past season, and the former should still be present in 25 thanks to Love. Fantastic. Jeremiah Love, number 1. Isaac Brown, number 2. Number 3, Nicholas Singleton. Let me know who you think should have been on this top 10 list. You got Wisner, Texas. You got my guy who I think is going to emerge as a superstar in 25, Frazier for Georgia Bulldogs. Who should be on this top 25 list that is not on this list? Let me know. Let me know in the comments or with your phone calls later in the show. We're going to get to some tough love here. The Last Word on Sports article that came out today. Last Word on Sports article came out today. Speaking of Drew Allar, Franklin said he needs to take another step when it comes to his mobility. He needs to take another step when it comes to his leadership. He needs to take another step in terms of his completion percentage. He needs to take another step in terms of his touchdown interception ratio. Just being transparent, I will say, I don't think it's one necessarily specific thing. It's all of it. Mobility, completion percentage, touchdown interception ratio. Allar's statistics and measurables were solid and have improved over the past few years. What Franklin only barely touched on with the leadership comment, and where Allar really needs to take his next step, is in the intangibles. And we at PATC have been talking about that. We talked about it when we ranked Penn State in the top of the Big Ten. We put Penn State in their way too early CFP projections. And every time I talk about Penn State, they're absolutely loaded. But it's about Drew Allar and his intangibles. Can he mature? Can he dominate the game between the ears? Drew Allar. In the immediate future, he needs to build rapport with his new receivers. Additionally, Drew Allar needs to finally win the big game. More specifically, a contest where Penn State is not favored. While the relatively vague and textbook answer from Franklin was likely a way to answer the question without a real answer. They were very curious quarterback comments as spring practice starts at Penn State. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, and I agree with the last word on sports, their article. Franklin covered everything. There's more to the article. I just wanted to hit a couple things. I think Franklin hit upon everything because he did not want to just focus on that one thing. Drew Allar's statistics, his play on the field, fantastic. His measurables, his athletic ability, his mobility, everything is he's ready to win the Big Ten championship. He's ready to challenge for the national championship. But it's the intangibles. The big wild card, Drew Allar, for the 2025 season. I saw the article. I just wanted to touch upon it. Again, we're talking football here during the offseason. And I think that is it for Penn State. Drew Allar's intangibles. It's going to be fascinating to watch when the football season finally kicks off. Let me know your comments and thoughts in the comment section below the video. And so now we're going to get to the topic at hand, the big topic, the SEC and the Big Ten blundered. In my opinion, I believe they blundered for their respective conferences. Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti. During the negotiations between NCAA was involved. Of course they were. They're paying a lot of the back pay. But Sankey, Petitti, they were all in there. They all had to sign off on it. This is where I think they could have done better. Everyone's talking about the rev share, the $20.5 million in rev share. And that is computed by taking the medium revenue on specific items within every Power 4 athletic department. So with new money coming in, with new media rights package, money coming in, there are escalators to these media packages that all these Power 4 conference has. That $20.5 million rev share number is going to go up. It's going to creep up. The rev share number is the entire athletic department direct money that can go directly from the athletic department to the student athletes. It's not football. It's every sport. $20.5 million. And again, the number comes the medium, the middle of all the ranges, all the money that comes into the Power 4 conferences, the athletic department revenue. It's the medium of the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, and the ACC. Couple things that could have been done, or at least I believe should have been pushed. Number one, remember, when you're looking at it from Sankey and Petitti's perspective, and I said at the beginning of the show, I would give them some grace on this because they needed everybody to sign on board. But you remember when all the discussions and article were going on about trying to get everybody to sign on this settlement deal? You remember these Division I athletic departments that were saying, why are we we're looking to opt in on this deal. We're going to be doing rev share, but why are we getting involved in the payback of the $2.8 billion in which some of the NCAA is going to pay, and the schools that opt in, those schools are going to pay back, who sign on the dotted line, they're going to do part of the $2.8 billion payback. Why are we involved? Our student athletes did not miss out on NIL deals, higher compensation deals, anywhere to the level that SEC student athletes, that Big Ten student athletes. Why are we involved in as much as you all for the payback and on the $2.8 billion? Remember all that complaining? But there was no budge on that. There was no budge on it. The payback is going to be it's going to be paid by, a lot of it by NCAA tourney credits, where you're not going to grab all that money that's supposed to go to you. That's going to go more to the NCAA while they are paying off the $2.8 billion House settlement. But maybe there should have been some compromise. Maybe the Big Ten and the SEC should have said, yeah, okay, sure. We'll pay more of that $2.8 billion per institution than other programs, but in return, we get something in return. And that something in return is a separate rev share negotiations with the lawyers from House, from the gentleman House, the swimmer. Different rev share, different salary caps for conferences that generate a whole lot more money than other conferences. You know, I've said this before on, the very first episode that I ever did on this YouTube channel, I advocated for collective bargaining. I still do that. I just lost hope that it's ever going to. But that's what I did in the very first episode. I said that everything's changing. These student athletes are going to get money directly from the athletic departments. That wasn't happening 3 years ago. But I said it's going to happen, and it should happen through a collective bargaining agreement. I also said during the weeks and months after that very first episode, I also said, and these collective bargaining agreements should be collective bargained per conference. The SEC should collective bargain with their student athletes separately from Conference USA and how they do it. The SEC should collective bargain agreement, have a collective bargaining agreement that is different than the ACC. The SEC benefits more from their student athletes. The institutions benefit more from their student athletes. The student athletes benefit more from being a part of the SEC than other conferences. There should be separate collective bargaining agreements. SEC has different revenue agreements than the MAC conference, than the Big Ten conference, than the Pac-12 conference that's reemerging. They have different revenue agreements. They might have different it's a bargain, right? They're collectively bargaining in theory with their student athletes who would get representation. I know none of that is happening, but that is what I've been advocating for. If you're going to have collective bargaining, you got to do it by conferences. Unless you do this Super League where we're all under one umbrella. So if you're going to have a settlement with the House versus NCAA and you're doing rev share, this should have been handled so much differently. There were percentages coming out of the House. The House lawyers and everything, part of the settlement was, 75% of the back pay is going to go to the former football players that are in this class action suit. And 15% basketball, whatever the percentages are. Where there should have been a rev share cap on revenue sports of football and basketball separately. Instead of having it all under one $20.5 million. And again, it could have been done by figuring out how much money. It's more difficult, I understand, how much money a conference makes, whatever, with basketball. This was this $20.5 million in just with everything combined, it's clumsy, it's clunky. The SEC and the Big Ten blundered. They really did not. Let me put it even more of a context for you. We had a live show 3 or 4 weeks ago in which I talked about how the Big Ten and the SEC, we were given information that, the Big Ten, we first talked about it in September of 24, about the September 9th, about the Big Ten doing this radical, they're going for 4 automatic qualifiers for the college football playoffs. About 4 weeks ago, we did a live show, and I said, we think it's a fait accompli, because, and the Big Ten is also going to be helping the SEC. The SEC athletic directors, the coaches, wanted a tight clearinghouse. Remember I talked about it. The SEC wanted, they came out of a meeting, an SEC only meeting, a few days before they met with the Big Ten, which was a week before they both went to Dallas to meet with the ACC and the Big 12. The SEC came out of that meeting and said, we want that clearinghouse. We're feeling good, more confident that the clearinghouse is going to be legit. And we talked about it before they had that meeting. The SEC actually at least at that time, they probably have already changed their mind, but at that time, they wanted a tight clearinghouse where the NIL deals that are submitted are really tight and looked at by, is this a true market value deal or is this pay for play deal? And if it's a pay for play deal, it's not going to go through the clearinghouse. It's going to be denied. The SEC wants these deals to be denied. They want it to be tight. Now I'm wondering if they want to change their mind on that, because they're starting to face the reality that when they're great basketball programs, the SEC is fantastic this year, but they're not going to be able to match some of these D1 athletic departments that are basketball centric going forward when it comes to direct rev share money. This is a subject everyone's talking about. They're not going to be able to do it because the SEC is going to be putting more of their money, of their rev share money into the football programs, as they should. And the Big Ten as well, and the Big 12 as well, and the ACC as well. So to make up for that, well, people are saying, well, Alabama, they'll make up for it on NIL. Maybe they will. Maybe when it comes to that basketball money, they will make it up. Duke people sound pretty confident. Got BYU, big money, NIL money. Everyone's really confident that they're going to be able to make up for the rev share difference between their direct allocation of money going to the basketball players versus what the St. John's, the Villanovas, etc. are going to be able to do in the Big East and other basketball-centric athletic departments that do not have a football program to feed that rev share money to. A lot of people seem pretty confident out there. But again, if the Deloitte clearinghouse is run tightly, if they actually deny these NIL deals, and you have to show that your name, image, and likeness is actually benefiting this certain company to the tune of $1 million, supposedly this is going to be denied. So now it's leading to reality, frustration. Here is a deal, a settlement deal, that everybody signed on to. And by the way, the Big Ten and the SEC took leadership. And at the end of the day, before it's even April 7th, people are waking up to the fact that, oh boy, we're not going to be able to match some institutions, some athletic departments with rev share basketball money. And it's not even just basketball either. I mean, I'm looking at I don't know, maybe Rice in baseball, maybe Fullerton in baseball, maybe, I don't know if they're going to opt in or not, but, some other sports, these institutions are going to be able to spend money on a particular sport probably higher than the Power Four conferences. So I believe they blundered. I believe there are different ways they could have worked out a deal to still get everybody to sign on, but to have some flexibility, to have different cap numbers for different sports or different cap numbers for different conferences. The Big Ten and the SEC did not wield their power. All they had to do was compromise on the back pay. And they should have anyways. But they should have used that as a mechanism to make sure that they weren't going to screw themselves on this rev share deal. But they did not. They blundered. They absolutely blundered. I say all this, and I'm still going to give them some grace because, again, a deal had to be made. Even though this House NCAA deal is going to get blown up at some point, a deal had to be made for now, or that $2.8 billion would have skyrocketed. But they blundered. So I want to get your comments, phone calls, talk about Drew Allar, Penn State, talk about the top 10 running backs, talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm going to open up the phone lines right now, Saturday afternoon, PATC 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. Give me a call. Talk about anything you want in college football. And a lot of people are talking about this. Greg, don't even worry about that. There is going to be money being paid under the table. Well, the bag man are coming, right? We'll see. Remember, these lawyers, they're creating this they're creating this enforcement arm. There are penalties that everyone's agreeing to.
Call from
BJ.
BJ, the floor is yours. Let it rip, sir. How you doing?
What's up, Greg? And as always, thanks for allowing me to speak on your platform. Happy Saturday. A couple things. My Penn State is actually my favorite to win the chip next year.
Who?
Penn State.
Okay. All right. I got them
Penn
knocking
State,
on the door. I don't have them. I got Texas winning it right now.
You know, Texas is good. Penn State just has way more stability.
Mm-hmm.
And a few things that I like about Penn State. The last two chips have come from the Big Ten, right? And there's been a reoccurring thing that happened with those two teams. Both two teams were heavily senior laden. You know, teams suffered defeat previous season. They came back as a group, as a veteran-led group, and Penn State has those same foundations, right? The quarterback took his lumps. I think he's going to learn from it. He's talented. I just think I just think the moment was too big for him, to be honest with you. They have running backs that are amazing. They lost their tight end.
Yeah.
They lost the tight end, and they're going to have to get better at the skill position on the outside. And Penn State will. They will. And I think, no offense against the offensive coordinator, I think he has a tendency to get cute sometimes. And I think his play calling will get better because I think he knows what he has now. But with Texas has a lot of moving parts. And just like they did coming into this year, they have a lot of moving. I think they lost their top 3 or 4 receivers the year before. They brought in a couple more. They lost their top 2 running backs from the preseason. And then I think this year, they're losing their starting tackles are both gone. And I think their starting 2 defensive tackles are both gone as well. And even though Manning is uber talented, you know, his time on the field this year wasn't the best, wasn't horrible, but there was definitely room for improvement. So Texas has the talent, but proven talent. I don't think there's any team in the country that has more proven talent than Penn State.
You make a lot of great comments. I really like Penn State. I put up my playoff prediction up there. I got them in the Final Four, losing to Clemson. Mm-hmm. I might change my mind on that. I got Clemson and Texas in the final. I got Texas winning it. I was showing a part of the article. Penn State is bringing in Kyron Hudson and Devontae Ross, 2 receivers in the portal. Drew Allar is going to have to get comfortable with those guys. And I think a lot of it has to do, you know, they got Dennis Sutton, the great defensive end. I mean, Penn State's got so much talent. I think the wild card is Drew Allar and his intangibles. And if he matures, then I think you might be onto something, BJ.
You know, and I'll say this too, because Clemson is the other team that's uber talented and uber veteran laden, right? But the thing about my biggest concern with Penn State is not actually the offense and Drew Allar and Kotnicki. It is Tom Allen leaving, right? And he was a great defensive coordinator, and I think he went to Clemson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah,
I think he went to Clemson.
But they got Jim Knowles. They got the Buckeye. So
I got you. And if you remember with Jim Knowles, that first year that he came from Oklahoma State to Ohio State, their defense was arguably the worst defense I've ever seen at Ohio State. That was the year they had the quarterback that went to Texas, the Texans, Stroud.
Mm-hmm.
Stroud's last year, they put up historical offensive numbers at Ohio State. but their defense was historically bad, and he plays a defensive style that's intuitive, that requires the DBs to read, right? Yeah. And so that it may, I don't know whether it's going to take a year for the Penn State defense to kind of get used to his defense. He's a great defensive coordinator, but that defense he runs is mighty complex. But you're right. And also I'll say this, and then kind of move on, is I'm curious about this, and there's no data on this. It's just how I'm feeling, Greg. The influence of money into our game at this level, how will it affect kids' preparation for the game, right? And just into the game. I think Florida State suffered from that, where they paid a lot of their players really good money, and there was a significant drop-off in just preparation for the game. And there's no way we can kind of know which kids are going to not let the money kind of lead them, but I'm curious to see how the influx of money kind of impacts, teams and coaches' decision on whether to play a kid or not play a kid because being paid. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, you're right. I think part of the recruiting now is how is this young man going to be able to handle money, right? Like is he gonna still be is he going to be working hard? Is he going to listen to the coaches? Is he still going to have this curiosity to the game? Is he going to do all he can to play on Sundays? Yeah, I absolutely agree. That is a whole nother element now that is into the game. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's a variable you can't really account for. Mm-hmm. But lastly, I'll just say this, Greg, and this is kind of in tune with what we're talking about today, is this the congressional issue with the settlement, right? I think it's been poorly handled. There's not a lot of communication. It looks like it's just two conferences kind of making the decisions, which is scary. Kind of leads me to the point where maybe it's going to be a power two. If they're making all the decisions, maybe
everybody had to sign on it. Everybody had to sign off on it. So it wasn't a power two, but they were leading, and they should have done better for their conferences. I think they blundered.
Because to me, I was under the impression that they brought the settlement back to the other conferences and say, "Here's the deal we have." Right? I didn't know, but maybe I'm wrong. But that's kind of the assumption based on the reading that I got. It was mainly articles talking about those two.
The ACC and the Big 12, they all had to opt into it. All four of them did. Okay. All four of them signed off on it. But again, it left in my. I think it's quite evident. It left the Big Ten and all these four conferences susceptible to look what's going on with the rev share when it comes to basketball. I think it should have been done differently. I think they blundered.
Yeah, because I think the mid majors or Big East in particular, their budget is going to go up because they don't have the football liability. And last, as it pertains to that, I've been watching the tournament. The tournament has been decent, but there's been a lack of, I guess, I don't want to say Cinderellas, but there's been a lack of kind of like upsets, right?
It's been chalky.
And it's pretty chalky, right? Yeah. And but with that being said, do you think that the impact of the financial piece is playing into the chalkiness in terms of major conferences having a significant edge over, the mid majors and lower? Because it feels like the players are just better. It feels like the powerful players are just better, bigger and better.
I agree with Jay Billis. This is just one single data point. If you look at the last 22, 23 years, this is an outlier. If it happens again next year or the year after, like it happens twice in 4 years, that is something to consider. But this, it happened this year, but man, it hasn't been happening like this. So it's one single data point. I don't think we should overreact. And plus, again, the issue we're talking about is there is the great possibility that these Power 4 conference basketball programs with rev share are going to be outspent by other D1 athletic departments. But I appreciate...
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. Hello?
Appreciate it, Greg.
You got it.
Appreciate it, Greg. You have a great one.
Yep, great call. Great call, BJ. I want to get to John Teal Super Chat. I did not get to it. I apologize, John Teal. My personal favorite, Mr. Perfect from Minnesota. Robbinsdale, Minnesota. I'll get back to that in a second.
Call from
Evil Badger.
Evil Badger, Ryan Willie is on the line. Can you hold on for a moment?
Okay.
Yeah, you might want to turn me down there.
Okay.
I'm hearing you. Okay, I'm getting some.
I clicked out.
Okay. Let me get to a couple generous super chats here.
Okay.
John Teal, Mr. Perfect, from Robbinsdale, from my city. Again, him and Rick Rude graduated with my sister, and Mr. Perfect. I remember in Robbinsdale, downtown Robbinsdale, we would have these outside parties. The Muni Bar. The Muni Bar was a municipality. It was the city of Robbinsdale owned it. And they had this big parking lot. The bar is not there anymore. The parking lot is not there anymore. But this was back when I was in my 20s. Let's just say that. This party would go on during the 4th of July, around that time, every single year. And you would get hot dogs and you would get just beer or drinking beer outside in the parking lot. The music would be playing. And I remember in my 20s, I can't remember what year, but Kurt Hennig was 10 years older than I was. So I want to say that I was about 24, 25. And so Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, would have been about 35. He walked through that parking lot, and he had the biggest brace on his knee, and he was limping, and you could tell that he was in pain. I bring that up because everyone talks about how great an athlete Mr. Perfect was. That was part of his thing, and he was. All that was absolutely true. Like, he could have done anything. He was an unbelievable talent in sports growing up. He played with my, the Robbinsdale generation before. Like, my sister graduated. He was an incredible athlete. But when he got that knee injury, then, in his probably early 30s, then he unfortunately started to slow down. I want to add one more thing, though. A really great athlete. I mean, legendary athlete, professional wrestler, was Barry Darsow. I can't remember I think he was Repo Man. And I think he was part of some famous tag team. But Barry Darsow in baseball, he played baseball with my brother at Crystal Park, Babe Ruth Field. When he would go up to bat, the shortstop and the third baseman would be not in the infield. They would be halfway in the outfield. Barry Darsow was bigger than everybody, stronger than everybody. He could have been a great baseball player. I mean, he was a great baseball player, but he could have went on. He was a great wrestler. I mean, these guys were just... So Barry Darsow, I don't think he's like all that famous, but if you professional wrestler, Barry Darsow, everyone feared him. And he was a great guy. But like on the baseball field, everybody feared that dude. And I was a little kid watching Bill and Tim, my older brothers, play baseball against Barry Darsow. He played for Ward's, Montgomery Ward sponsored. I have all these memories. And Barry Darsow, Kurt Hennig, These guys were really great athletes. Anyways, enough about that. Thank you, John Teal, for the super chat. Jimmy Touchdown. Past 10 years have shown that Big East basketball schools have become increasingly irrelevant as brands each year without football schools. Basketball schools can pay players $100 million a year. That won't change that fact. Well, they're not going to be able to pay these players $100 million a year. If they could, though, it would change that fact. It would. But I get what you're saying, Jimmy. I get what you're saying. You're being a little bit, sometimes you got to go a little bit over the top to send a message. Message sent. Thank you, Jimmy, for your super chat. Appreciate your incredible generosity. Thank you so very much. Ryan Willie, thank you for your patience. I appreciate you letting me get caught up. The floor is yours.
Hey, Greg. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet.
I have to disagree with your way too early prediction of Texas winning the national championship.
Wow. You're disagreeing with me on what? Texas?
Yes.
Well, okay. I'm going to let you disagree with me. But remember, this year I'm Greg the Gold. I'm not Greg the Cooler. I'm not Greg the Loser. I'm Greg the Gold when I make my predictions. I want you to be aware of that, Ryan Willie. Go ahead, sir.
And I'm probably gonna I'm probably gonna make Moen upset because I believe that Oregon will win the national championship.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you are disagreeing with Moen. I disagree with Moen every day, and it's good for the health. It's good for the circulatory system. But you're saying that Oregon is going to win the national championship.
Yes.
I think at some point they will as well. I think Moen is I think he puts too much cheese in his hamburgers.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with cheese on hamburgers.
Oh, that's right. You're Wisconsin. You got okay. All right.
And after the Badgers beat the Gophers at the end of the season, I'll make the same deal as I did last season.
Got it. You're on, buddy. If Wisconsin wins, if they win the Axe, if they bring it home to Madison, I got to eat a cheeseburger live on this show.
Yes.
You got it. The deal's on, buddy. That ain't going to happen.
But
I ain't worried about it, I tell you that.
But as far as the Badgers go this year, if Edwards doesn't do very well in the beginning of the year, Fickle will probably have to bench him for Smith.
You're a true freshman, right?
The true freshman.
Yeah, there's not going to be anybody between your true freshman and Billy Edwards?
Well, that other guy, but I believe if they don't start playing the talent that they're bringing in, they're constantly going to be going into the portal, and we won't be very good for years to come. And it really upsets me that, and I'm using other words than I really want to use, but it really upsets me that Fickle is not recruiting the in-state talent in Wisconsin.
Yeah, it is worrisome, isn't it? Sometimes when that slide starts, you can't stop it. You can't stop it. And maybe that's where Luke Fickle is. We'll see.
And not only Fickle, but I think McIntosh should be out the door with him if they don't make a bowl this year.
What was that?
I believe that McIntosh at AD should be out the door with Fickle if they don't make a bowl this year.
Yeah, he might not get another chance, right, to name another head coach.
It's frustrating, and so they have to do well this year, even though the schedule is brutal.
Yeah.
But
Schedule's brutal.
And I know that it's not as brutal next year, but if you're not going to be bringing in the talent, then it doesn't matter what kind of schedule Wisconsin has if they're not going to bring in the talent.
Yeah.
So okay, that's all I had, Greg.
All right, man. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ryan
Right.
Willie.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Great call.
Bye.
Thank you, Ryan Willie. Monopoly, thank you for your super chat. Thank you so much for your generosity once again and your friendship and everything you do for the show, Monopoly. Darso, Barry Darso is Khrushchev, Smash of Demolition, Blacktop Bully, Mr. Hole-in-One, Barry Darso, so he did use his name. I also put Demolition and the Midnight Express in the Hall of Fame. Midnight Express is not in the Hall of Fame? Holy smokes. Thank you, Monopoly, who is a professional wrestling expert, college football expert. Barry Darso was, he was a really, thank God he was a really nice guy. He was. He wasn't like Rick Rude in high school, or Kurt Hennig could go back and forth, but Barry Darso was thank goodness. He, the only one that was more feared than Barry Darso on the baseball field was Kent Herbeck. And I think I've told the story before. It was Robbinsdale against Bloomington. Bloomington Jefferson. I think it was Bloomington Jefferson. It might have been Bloomington Kennedy. Ken Herbeck gets up the bat. Just rips a shot. He's a lefty. And hot ground ball. Takes a wild hop. I mean, it was a one-hopper. One hopper, edge of the grass in the dirt, just knocks Bill on it. Bill's a shortstop, hit Bill in the eye. Bill goes flying. Ball goes in the outfield. Bill gets a black eye. Got to take him out of the game. Ken Herbeck did that to my brother Bill. But Barry Darso was feared. Absolutely feared. Thank you for the super chat, Monopoly. I do appreciate it so very much. Jerry Blackwell never got bunted. Never bunted. He was not from Minnesota. He was from Stone Mountain, Georgia. Lee, who would have thought Minnesota Golden Gophers would be sitting at home watching the Penn State Nittany Lions playing in the hockey tournament? Go get them, Nittany Lions. Go get them. Again, I went through the Gopher hockey game yesterday's live show. Started the show off with a funeral march, and I went nuclear. And I can't go down that rabbit hole again today for my health, so I'm going to have to just let that go. If you want to get me, you don't have to get me going today because I went through it yesterday. JB, the law of averages, Greg. The law of averages. You have to be right next year. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Oh. What else we got here? What else? Let me just take a quick look. I want to thank everybody for joining us on a lazy Saturday afternoon. I appreciate you all coming on in. I just want to take another look just in case, keeping my head on a swivel. Keeping my head on a swivel.
Call from
Larry the GM.
Larry the GM, Mr. Longhorn. Thanks for calling, sir. Let it rip.
Well, Greg, thanks for letting me talk to you today, and thank you again for all that you do for us college football fans.
You
so,
got
Greg,
it.
we had a really good chat today on Twitter, and it's really interesting that we had that chat, and this is the subject of the show today.
Yeah.
Where do you think the Big Ten and SEC go from here?
It's a great question because, even the now, someone correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am, but everything that Judge Wilkins is looking at, this is a negotiation between all the parties. The NCAA talking to these conferences, commissioners, presidents, athletic directors, and talking to House lawyers. So even like the clearinghouse is part of the negotiations. The back pay is part of the negotiations. The rev share is part of, and how it's produced is part of the negotiations. And I believe this is a 10-year deal. Let me know if I'm wrong. Let me know if I'm wrong, because, I get some of this. We go through so much of this lawyer stuff, and I only play one on TV. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator. I just know where every refrigerator is in every building that I go into. I might have that wrong. But if I'm right, Larry, if I'm correct, the chances are pretty small, but if I'm correct, if it's a 10-year deal, Judge Wilkins approves it and everything, I don't know where they can go from here other than the fact that chances are the Deloitte Clearinghouse ain't going to be run tight. It's going to be loose. They're going to be scared of lawsuits, and the Power Four conferences NIL deals are going to blow by the other deals, and they're going to be approved in the clearinghouse, and this ain't going to be much of a problem. I think that might be probably what's going to happen. The bagman stuff, I think everyone's going to have to be, everyone's saying, well, the bagman's coming. Maybe they are. I'm not naive to say they're not. But the penalties on that, if caught, according to this deal, according to the lawyers and all this, is pretty severe for a certain program. That is one of the reasons why they've got these NIL collectives in-house, a lot of them. Anyways, go ahead, Larry.
So, and Greg, I don't know the answer to the question I asked either, right? And what I do know is that the SEC and the Big Ten are not going to put themselves in the position of being disadvantaged versus other college.
Well, they just did, though.
I know that's the way it looks, and that's the way it probably will be for a year.
Yeah.
I don't expect that that's going to last more than a year.
Yeah, you might be right. So, I just don't know the mechanism behind it,
Well, I do. If I remember I don't profess to be a house settlement specialist, because I think the whole thing is going to go away in a year and a half through the courts. Because I said to you the day that deal happened that it would not be viewed as being constitutional, because you can't limit compensation for individuals if you don't have them signed as an employment contract. So, I think the NCAA has wasted time and should have listened to you from the very beginning of your show, Greg, that they needed to make the players employees and actually negotiate with them on that footing. But what I think in the House settlement, that 20.5 is a ratio to the revenues right? That's and you talked about that. Is a ratio? I think it's 50%, but that detail may be escaping me. Of the gross revenues of all the Power Four conferences. Well, as that number grows, because it's going to grow, because the media contracts for the power conferences are going up, especially for the SEC and Big Ten.
Yes. Yeah, it's going to get more difficult for the ACC and the Big 12. Yes.
Right, because I think that the higher that number gets, the harder this whole issue goes away. It's part of my point, right? Because if that number's 30 in 2 years, well, then I don't suspect that there's going to be that kind of growth for anybody else other than the SEC and the Big Ten. Do you understand what I'm saying with that?
Mm-hmm.
The 20.5 becomes 30. Well, then the 25% of the program that you can allocate to basketball becomes a lot more in line with what the Big East is going to make. And the other part I don't really understand is where the Big East universities are going to, when their average revenue is $7 million from their media contract, and they have all the expenses and coaches and everything else. Yeah. I don't understand the statement that the Big East schools are going to really be able to allocate $6 to $8 million. Well,
it's not because the revenue just isn't from the media contracts. I forget what
right.
all.
Well, I know you have ticket sales and all and advertising and all that, but you also have major expenses in those conferences. Yeah. Right? I mean, if those schools were making huge amounts of money on basketball, they could be able to do that now. I mean, they could be able to wipe the slate clean of everybody else in basketball already, because they would have tremendous basketball facilities compared to all the power conferences. I just don't. Maybe I'm misinformed, Greg, but I don't see that. I mean, I know the Big East has got some great basketball schools, but I don't see them as these major revenue-generating basketball universities.
Yeah,
with maybe the exception of Gonzaga, right? I mean, and they're not a Big East school.
Yeah,
Where's the money for all these basketball?
Well, first of all,
I don't understand.
Okay. Well, first of all, I don't think the rev share difference between what Alabama is going to be able to allocate to their men's basketball program versus what St. John's is going to be able to allocate to their men's basketball. I don't think it's like dramatically different. It's going to be different though, but not dramatic. I mean, I don't think we're talking like, I think some of the biggest Big East teams might be able to go 8 to 10 million per rev share. And SEC teams and Big Ten teams and ACC, whatever, we're not going to be able to match it because they're going to be putting 75% of the rev share towards football, and they've got some other sports that they have to do. Right? It ain't going to be just 2 sports that the rev share goes to. So it's just a mathematical thing. And these basketball programs are going to have to just probably do one sport. These athletic departments, possibly 2. Some of these athletic departments only have one division, one sport. And if you only have to opt in on your Division 1 sports. You don't have to opt in on all your sports. I went through that on a live show and on Twitter one day, and like John Hopkins, if they're going to opt in, all they have to do is do a rev share for the lacrosse team. They don't have to do it for the other 22 sponsored Division 3 that they have. Same with these hockey programs, which is a whole nother discussion. So I don't think there's like a big dramatic difference. I think there's going to be some, and again, I don't know, like, I know people have broken down. I know Wild Jute on College Football Mafia show broke down how much revenue does the ACC basketball, how much revenue in media money does ACC basketball programs bring in, and I think it was like $7 million each, and they did a Big East analysis, and it was basically the same thing.
Right. Well, exactly. Right. And I guess that's where I'm struggling understanding where the Big East schools have money to burn, because I don't. I guess I fundamentally don't believe that the Big East schools have $6 to $8 million to put into a rev share bucket. And I guess the other thing when we talk, I think the one factor maybe people aren't considering about the clearinghouse, and no one's going to like this, Greg. So I will help you become even more hated. The most hated podcast on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
But a school like Texas can go to the clearinghouse and explain, well, we're doing this rev share, but we're putting our athletes. They're doing commercials. They're doing things that are building the brand in our market, which Austin is going to be one of the biggest big college sports markets in the country. And also Texas extends all over the state. We can justify the amount of money we want to pay our athletes when other
it's the business. It's the business that's paying the athlete.
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and I just think that more of the deals for a Texas, an LSU, these schools that are in some fairly significant markets are going to be able to justify their private side NIL deals. And maybe I'm missing something on that, but that's if we have to justify them, I think Texas can justify what our compensation way easier than most other colleges are going to be able to justify it. Does that make sense, Greg, or am I missing something there?
Maybe I have no idea what's going to happen. Maybe you are going to be able to. I have no idea. What about Texas Tech? What are they going to like?
Well, they're in Lubbock, Greg.
I know, but maybe where you are, the region where you are, the market is going to be one of those metrics that Deloitte looks at. But how heavy of that is, we just have no idea. I don't know, man.
It's got to be part of the formula. It's got to be
Sure,
part of the model,
sure, but
right?
how much of it is? How much of it is? And if you got a big old company in Lubbock, if there's a billionaire that owns a company and he can provide that, like, they're going to plaster their faces all over the place, and they're probably going to be able to justify it. All I know, Larry, is the SEC came out of their own meetings, and they said we wanted a tight Deloitte clearinghouse. And I think they probably have already changed their minds on that. That's all I'm saying.
That's what all the rumors are, but
it wasn't rumors. Brian Kelly said it out in the open. There wasn't rumors. It was reported. It's absolutely true. And they talked to the Big Ten to make sure the Big Ten had their backs, because they don't want these other programs outside the SEC to be able to just go pay for play on them and to bury them with just a couple billionaires. This is what the SEC is trying to avoid. That's why they wanted to try. Not all the money's in SEC country. There's big old money out there, and the SEC wants this to be tightly controlled. So what they blundered on, I want to make this clear. The SEC should have had a different rev share cap for their conference versus other conferences, and they screwed up, in my humble opinion.
I think you're right about that, Greg.
Yeah,
I think you're right about that, because they were trying to duck the bigger spending side of this, the settlement costs, and it's hurting them. But I think, Greg, what I'm trying to reflect, and the reason I think the SEC would be in favor of the harsher, more rigid clearinghouse is because they're going to be able to justify financially their deals that they're giving their players, because the profile of their players and their markets that they have, and I know that everybody hates the phrase, but when the SEC says it just means more, that's they're reflecting something that should be in the formula of the clearinghouse. Those players can get compensated.
You're not
more
gonna,
because,
okay, but it's not gonna. The clearinghouse ain't gonna have pictures of Greg Sankey up on the wall, sir. This is why,
Greg. I'm just trying to understand like the model that they're gonna have.
I don't know what the model is, and I think it's the grandest wild card of them all. The clearinghouse, Deloitte.
Well, that may be the part that Sankey does understand.
Yeah, we'll see.
So, well, Greg, it's been great talking to you. I think your show today has brought up a lot of great points for us to think about. All I'll say is I don't suspect that the Big Ten and SEC, if they, and you're right. I think they should have done something different here, but I think what they can do is they'll figure out ways to fix their mistake really quickly.
All right, we'll see.
All right, take care, Greg.
You got it, buddy. Appreciate the phone call. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I gotta clear something up here. Hold on. Larry the GM, Mr. Longhorn, bringing it. A lot of great comments. There is one other comment I want to make on this. Because we're going to be discussing this, this is going to be a major storyline. I've said that about 15 different storylines, but it's all true. The Deloitte Clearinghouse thing is going to be very impactful. But, we haven't talked about conference realignment today, and we're not going to, but I do want to bring in the House versus NCAA settlement, the rev share, into the discussion here of conference realignment just for a moment here at the end of the show. And the question is, Nathan Brown asks this question a lot. He's not the only one who asks it. But the question is, why? Why would the conference bring on more schools? Why would, and my answer is market share. The Big Ten and the SEC are eyeing each other. Big 12 and ACC are eyeing each other. There are other reasons. The question, why for the school? And we have broken down, you can make a very strong argument. The earlier North Carolina leaves the ACC to go to the SEC, the better, or to the Big Ten. But especially the SEC, because they're going to do pro rata, most likely, for North Carolina. And economically, it just works. Sooner the better for North Carolina, because there is more than an $18 million conference payout gap between the SEC and the ACC. So while the exit fee goes down $18 million a year, the gap is larger. The revenue gap is larger than $18 million a year, especially when you bring on other intangibles like sponsorship, other stuff. So earlier the exit, the better for North Carolina. Another reason why there's going to be this squeeze where if you have an opportunity as a North Carolina, as a Virginia, as a Florida State Seminole, as a Clemson Tiger, as a Miami Hurricane. Another reason why it is benefit you to jump earlier than later if you have a landing spot, if you've got it figured out with the SEC or the Big Ten. Another reason why it's better earlier than better is the rev share, because that number is going to creep up. It's going to be more and more difficult for an ACC school to meet that maximum rev share, because it's computed by all Power 4 conference athletic departments revenues on certain metrics. It's a natural squeeze. That's just the reality. To match the top rev share number, it's going to be more difficult for schools in the Big 12, in the ACC, and some in the Big 10, and some in the SEC that don't gain revenue, that don't gain the revenue from other streams like other athletic departments. So, as the squeeze is occurring, that is another incentive for North Carolina to make the jump. That's got to be in their calculations. It ain't just about the gap in playoff distribution money, which happens in 26, the media money, and all this other stuff. It's actual rev share. It's the squeeze on Clemson and Florida State. It becomes a little bit more difficult. So that's another incentive to leave earlier than later. I want to thank everybody for joining me. My voice is gone. We've been on the air for 2 hours. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and friends. I'm very humbled that we've gotten so many people in here on a Saturday afternoon. I want to thank the very generous people who donated to help us keep the lights on. Ryan Willie, Bill G, John Till, Jimmy Touchdown in Monopoly. I appreciate you all coming on in. I appreciate the phone calls. My voice is absolutely gone. Hopefully we can do a live show tomorrow. I'm planning on it because there's more things I want to talk about. It's going to be a very busy April. Early, mid, and late April. It's all going to be busy. All college football. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. Please subscribe, smash the like button. Until next time. From all of us at PATC to all of you, please you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.